Yeah, so just for the sake of time, we only have two more slides. I'm just going to quickly go over this. Just for the sake of time, we only have two more slides. I'm just going to quickly go over this. I think one of the main questions people are, coaches are really interested in is how do I change technique? If the technique is bad or whatever it may be. And this is just a way that literature has shown that you can do so. So I'll just run through an example of it, and you can take it as it comes. But let's say your player is having difficulty passing the ball. And I always go back to passing. I just think I know it more, but obviously just be creative. I think coaches, you guys know a lot more than me. So this is just an outline. So let's just say you're having difficulty passing the ball to the middle of the court. By destabilizing, you can maybe make the space bigger or smaller. So the space where the athlete is supposed to pass to, for example. So you make that bigger or smaller. You can encourage exploration by asking them to start in different positions each time. A lot of differential learning approach methods. That just means like every repetition you start in a different starting point. That's a whole nother line of literature. Coaches often I don't think right now are grasping onto that literature, because if I tell you to ask your passer to pass a ball with their eye closed, one eye closed, I don't think that's going to be, I don't think you're going to really take that into account, but it's important. I think the research is getting there. Sooner than later, I do believe that differential learning is the way we're going to be coaching.
Hold on. So dive into that. I know we're pressed for time here, but should I be training my athletes to pass with one eye or the other?
No, I think let's wait till more literature comes out. I think it's encouraging evidence. I'll say that much, and it comes from neuroscience, which is really important. Yeah, I mean, if you were to do that, I don't know. I think it's something that we have to just kind of explore and see what's out there. So that's just another way. But again, you can do that in terms of starting in different positions each time, and without going to differential learning, starting 5 feet above or 10 feet back. I mean, that's also that, and then you can amplify information by serving the ball to sort of most extremes, right? Short, long, right, left. And you can provide transition feedback, which is actually what the whole presentation is on. So that's sort of information that relates directly to the change in the coordination pattern, and providing sort of this information that we talked about on what to do next. And that's super important. I think when you're trying to change technique, this provide transition feedback. It is what we've all discussed so far, but the most important takeaway is that what do I have to do next that can encourage whatever solution that you're looking for, or that's more optimal. So this is just a rundown of how to do it. I think it's, as a coach, just be more creative to figure it out. And then lastly, just to finish off, I discussed this last year at ABC as well. This is I think this is putting everything together. We talk about motivation, right? We talked about it a little bit. Autonomy is super important. Enhanced expectancy is confidence, right? Are we giving them the confidence to do well? Now, this can come in, are we saying if we're doing a drill or whatever, and are we allowing them to succeed more in that task, by maybe changing the rules a little bit. Again, going back to the constraints approach, changing the rules a little bit so it's a little easier for them to accomplish whatever it is. Again, enhancing their confidence in doing so. So you provide that autonomy, you provide that confidence, and then the tension we've hit on. That all comes, okay, now we're not focusing on ourselves and our bodies and all that. We're focusing on the task goal. Therefore, that improves performance and learning. So this is a good schematic of putting everything together, I think. This is more so the optimal theory of motor learning, came out in 2016. And again, I'm a little biased because it's by my advisor, but I think this is the way to approach how we practice. And so I know we hit on everything slightly, but I feel like this should be hopefully a good baseline to how we can, better our coaching methods. I think that's super important in terms of providing feedback and going that route. But yeah, I mean, with that, that's pretty much all I had.
Let's just go through this.
Yeah.
Go back a little more. So just to go through this, because there is a lot here. So we talked about the motivation side, the autonomy. I really liked what you said about you view yourself not as a coach and a player, but your partners in this process of learning. I think that's, and obviously asking some questions, and when do you want feedback? And I think these things are all in that autonomy category, correct?
Yep.
Yep. And then enhanced expectancies confidence is so important, right? And,
Yep.
and I think you're right. There's probably a few other lectures here on how to build confidence.
But I think it also comes down to, you provide autonomy. I think the confidence will also be up. And that's why that arrow goes down. I think it's super important to also realize. Yeah.
And then attention, external focus. We talked about that. Even the subcategories of external focus between proximal and distal. I get that. And then goal action coupling. Could you just
so that's
or where you had like, hey, 50 points if you do this here. Is that what you're talking
about?
So
that's a good way to put it. And so that's actually the hypothesis is that it's a neuroscience hypothesis. I don't know if I want to get into it, but it's literally saying how the brain works. In that sense, it's more efficient and more effective. And so there's a bunch of literature on that. And again, that's a series of lectures on resting state and salience network. So I think that's I don't think coaches want to hear that right now, but more than happy to discuss that anytime.
Right. We can do a roadshow. Okay, so, and then the circle, focus on task goal and self-focus, just really quickly.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, right, we may provide instructions that direct attention to the body. And so that's a self-focus, or we're focused on maybe, if you're not enhancing confidence, you're kind of talking to yourself like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? Kind of focusing on myself rather than the goal of the task. So we want to encourage those three things so that we can go and focus on task goal more. And that's pretty much what we say is going to improve performance learning. And there's been studies on all of this. So there's been studies that used each individual factor. There's been studies that used two of the factors, and then we published a study on force production. We used all three of them, and ours was a squatting study, and we found squat performance would be better if they were able to lift more weight, basically, if we just provided these three factors. So there's a lot of evidence there, but in volleyball specifically, I think we're getting there. So I think that's super important. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much I had. And then, I do encourage coaches, like I said in the beginning, to really think about how often you're speaking, how many times you ask questions in your practice session. How can you shorten your feedback? That's one thing we didn't hit on, but can I give my feedback in 10 seconds or less? Keep it short and sweet to the point rather than a 2-minute sort of discussion. How can you manipulate the environment so you reduce your instructions? That's the point system sort of example. And then again, like I mentioned, sometimes it only takes a couple words, and you can make everything more effective and more efficient. So just be mindful of that. I think that's super important. But
less is more, even on the total amount.
Yeah, I mean, so I would always say less is more. But there's ways that more can be better if you provide it in the right way.
You don't want to sit over on the side of the wall. That's not why we're there. We're there to construct these environments to give some more some feedback, but in different ways besides us just chirping every single time on the sideline.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's hopefully whoever's listening is intrigued by all this. I know it might be complicated and stuff, but I think it's super important that we kind of start focusing on these motor learning ideas, which help a lot of our feedback. So that's pretty much it.
I think it was a lot of good information, Harjit. And I think what I think about is how much mental creative time I'm going to have to engage in order to do this stuff. I think now that I've heard this a number of times, it's starting to register a little bit. And obviously some of these things I've had Beck's given me feedback on. And those things. I'm a little bit further down the path on this. But I have recognized that I can be better, which is why I'm so interested in the conversations that we've had. And I think there is a lot of effort in challenging ourselves as coaches to come up with better ways, because it's hard. It's very, very easy to say, do this. I'm seeing this, do that. And how to communicate those messages and challenging ourselves to do better. And honestly, for coaches, having the patience to do it, right? I mean, I think I have a 3 and a 5-year-old at home, and I know that if I want them to learn how to brush their teeth, I'm going to sit at that sink I'm going to watch them not brush their teeth for like 5 minutes, right? And I could just easily grab it and just go, and I'm out, because I just want to go in bed, And I think that patience component for us too is a fascinating aspect of this. It's not going to be clean and pretty and efficient. It's messy and We just have to be patient with it all too.
Yeah, no, I totally. And, I think this is good. Just talking to coaches, it kind of allows us to, figure out our future research questions and kind of go from there. And, it also gives me a sort of an insight into, your thinking, which is super important. I think as someone who wants to continue on, doing research in this sport, I think it's important for me to do so. So, your knowledge has been really, really awesome in sort of creating this PowerPoint. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes.
All right. Well, thanks, Arjiv, and thanks to UBCA for letting us do what we've done in the past, just kind of riffing on some of these concepts. It's always fun, Arjiv. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks.